Like most other kids with glasses, probably. I forced myself to get out of my warm bed. Dad would usually drive me to my old school, but this morning the bedroom of my parents was silent. Did they sleep in? I didn't want to get the daddy's boy reputation from day one. My parents were probably still tucked in, dreaming about the good old days when everything was so simple and easy. Sweet dreams, even if far removed from reality. I silently sneaked out to the first floor so I wouldn't wake anybody, especially the peacefully sleeping Olia. I did my best to step on the middle of every floorboard. I used to play like this even in our old apartment. If my soles touched the space between the floorboards, it counted as stepping into lava. The clock was spurring me on with its hands. I need to hurry, faster, faster. I was too fast, so I needed to circle the hallway once again. Boiling lava was bursting out of the cracks between floorboards. I needed to watch my step to survive at any cost. Hippity hop like a frog jumping on molehills, like a fearful bunny in a grove full of wolves. I made a sandwich in the kitchen, shoved it down my throat, and drank it down with cold tea. My appetite was as good as of someone being led up the scaffold toward the guillotine. I lowered my gaze and saw that one of my feet was standing in two floorboards at the same time. On two floorboards at the same time. Burnt to a crisp, huh? I moved my foot. Disgusting little snakes writhed in my belly, the fear of getting hit and being called nasty names. The clock clicked. I need to go. It was dark outside, fitting for an early winter morning. This darkness never fully left the houses around here. I took my time tying my shoes, buttoning up the puffy down jacket, trying to delay my unpleasant exit into the semi-dark, into the unnerving unknown. I rubbed my glasses for good luck, though I couldn't remember a single time these thick pieces of glass brought me any good fortune. Ugh, so he's going out into the dark? I guess if you have to. The sky was akin to a giant bruise. On the east side of it, a black cloud was swelling up. It licked up stars from the sky and extinguished the rising sun. Darkness was plastered all over the treetops. The cautious cries of birds got tangled up in the thicket. I locked the front door with a long key that I wore around my neck. My parents made me wear this noose, afraid that I, being a total klutz that I am, could lose the key otherwise. The wind whizzed on the other side of the gate. It invited me into my new life, towards dubious adventures, and tagged alone like the old bunny, pushing me in the back. Wide shadows that pines threw out covered a third of the clearing. Upon reaching the edge of the forest, I hid my nose in the coat's collar. I was squeezing through the thin fire break, my hair ruffled up and my back hunched over. Tall trees stood on both sides of the tiny trail. The snowy blanket rustled under my feet, and the canopy of intertwined branches above my head cut me off from the already sparse starlight. The night had no plans of moving away from the forest. In this darkness, trees reminded me of shaggy old women that smelled of burial earth. Their trunks turned into cracked, wrinkled faces with holes in the middle of their mouths. If I lost focus even for a moment, mold-covered witches would drag me into the forest depths. When my parents would be walking around these parts screaming my name, but the dead can't answer the living. Or can they? A sense of panic was growing in my chest. I was fine with Dad carrying me into the school by his hands by now if it saved me from watching the darkness rise up in the ravines like black dough. It felt like someone jumped into the bushes behind me, so I turned around. As soon as I started walking faster, I heard the snow squeak behind me. The forest took a deep breath with its giant lungs. The windfall cracked. The wind and the birds were left behind in the field. Now I could only hear the forest creak. I walked, listening closely, and the unseen presence grew stronger, as if someone was following me, trying to match the pace of my footsteps. I turned my head so fast it made my neck crunch. A tiny trail behind me disappeared into the darkness. Tree branches overlapped, forming a natural
Есть здесь
tunnel.
кто?
The question escaped my lips and dissolved into the unending creaking sound of wooden idols, the pines around me. Why did I think going through the forest alone was a good idea? I'm either going mad, or someone had intentionally lured me away from home. Distant lights granted me a smidgen of hope. A country road. I ran there as fast as I could, as if afraid that the trail would shrink. Clawed hands would grip me by the shoulders, turn me around, and make me look at the faces of hungry forest denizens. In the end, nobody stopped me. I almost flew to the decrepit wooden bridge, disbelieving my luck. The bridge supports bathed in a spring, tarry and ice cold. But I put my hands on my knees and looked up at the forest, then snorted, trying to calm my breathing. The thicket was pretending to be asleep. It looked peaceful, lifeless. The remaining part of my commute lied in the snow-laden road, illuminated by sparse lamplights. I chased away bad thoughts and ran as fast as I could, from one circle of light to another, seeking protection from electric lamps. Just like in that game where you need to be the first to proclaim, "I'm protected." It's just, in this case, that protection was flimsy at best, with darkness writhing outside its bounds. Then I noticed something remarkably eerie. In a place where the light from an inclined lamp couldn't reach, a hairy, crooked shadow came alive with a guttural roar. It almost felt like its features deterred light. Its unnatural pose instilled fear. My eyes almost popped out of their sockets as I stood there, blinking, trying to chase away that illusion. But the shadow didn't disappear and even got closer. My insides were gripped by horror. I stepped back and almost fell into a snow pile. The black silhouette, on the other hand, straightened up and addressed me in a sweet voice.
Крадешься? Душу мою украсть хочешь?
Words got stuck in my throat. Who could be talking in such a silky voice here between the forest and dormant village?
Чего молчишь, несмышленыш? Язык вырвали? Слушай, а я тебе еще и нос откушу. Будешь знать, как совать его в чужие дела.
A girl stood before me, judging from the voice of the silhouette, but I couldn't even reprimand myself for getting scared by a girl before noticing a gaping mouth under her hood with something dangerously shiny inside. I was stunned. From the captivity of her hood, a frighteningly real fox face was staring straight at me. It's just her jaws weren't moving and her eyes weren't blinking. A mask. It's just a girl with a fox mask on. At least I wanted to think that. After a surprise like that, a nervous smile involuntarily crept onto my face.
А я просто в школу иду, а тут ты. Что я? Никогда не видел, как лиса собаку кормит.
And indeed, there was a small dog circling the girl's legs. One of the strays that were chasing me yesterday, probably.
Извини, я не хотел.
After hearing my voice, the dog whimpered, lowered its ears, sniffed me out, and then started wagging its tail. Oh, it's so cute. I guess I still smelled a bologna that I ate for breakfast. I was shifting my gaze back and forth from the girl to the dog. From the dog to the girl. There we go. She didn't seem scary anymore, just weird.
Значит, не хотел. Ну-ну. Как тебя зовут? Меня Антон, а тебя? А меня нет.
She's weird, definitely has a couple loose screws, but she has a nice voice. My astonishment has turned into a mix of happiness and relief. This girl I didn't know was definitely human, if a bit eccentric. I was also a bit angry at myself. This foxy girl was walking through the darkness without a problem, and I shuddered from every little sound. I could just walk away, but this girl had piqued my interest. The next time a police officer asks me about my friends in this new place, I'll tell him I befriended a talking
Ты
fox.
здесь живешь? В поселке?
The fox giggled and purred. She spun around so hard that the hem of her coat lifted up.
Нет, глупый. Лисы не живут в поселках. Хочешь сказать, ты живешь в лесу? Из какой норы ты вылез? Конечно! Лисам среди людей не выжить, пока они лисы.
Her jokes were also weird. Just like her carnival mask, paper mache with fur glued onto it. A dog reminded us of its existence with a loud bark. I unfastened my backpack. Dad would sometimes throw food in there without my knowledge, cookies, apples, or even my favorite crab sticks. He called it a gift from the bunny. The stray strolled toward me with mincing footsteps, with a pleading look in its eyes. The fox did definitely treat it to something, but it was probably still hungry.
Зачем ты так вырядилась с утра пораньше? На утренник идешь?
The girl shrugged, throwing silvery snowflakes off her nose, and then her human form along with them, turning into a genuine beast, a real fox, agile, cunning, dangerous. A moment of hesitation and you'll be ripped to shreds. She'll tear you up and gulp you down without breaking a sweat. I couldn't help but just stand there as a stump until I heard her calm, melodic laughter, hidden underneath the beastly mask.
Видел бы ты свою маску, сладенький.
Did she just say sweetie? I got embarrassed. I went red to my hair roots. I'd seen a fox in a zoo once when we went there with Dad, but it had patchy fur, was gray and skinny. This girl was a fiery color and furry, just like in fairy tales. I was still rummaging through my backpack. My fingers were searching for the dog's treat, stumbled upon some soft, crumpled object.
Ничего, скоро проснутся настоящие звери. Спроси-ка лучше у них, где они взяли свои человеческие лица.
The girl's shadow was dancing in the lamplight. The dog yapped in agreement. I freaked out and dropped my finding in the snow without getting a proper chance to examine it. Cold wind instantly covered the hole it created with snow. The dog rushed to dig it out, wanting to get its treat, and the fox just snorted. Now I was embarrassed. I wanted to sink through the snow. It was still dark outside of the electric circle. On the contrary, the darkness seemed even more thick. All neighboring houses were sleeping deeply in its ickiness. I did my best to continue the conversation with the weird girl I didn't
Так ты в
know.
школу идешь? Ах, ну какой же дурачок! Так ничего и не понял.
Welp, I was trying to be friendly, but she can't stop mocking me, calling me a dummy and all. I should have just moved along without paying any attention to this weirdo and her stupid dog.
А ты чего обзываешься? Не хочешь отвечать, и пожалуйста. Никто не требует.
Still, something froze me in place, tugged me towards the dark figure. A mysterious appearance, her voice that was velvety and just languid enough. Let's just go with that. I was intrigued and excited. I watched her as people watch fires burn.
Ой, да не дуйся. Гляди-ка лучше. Ты нравишься Жульке.
The dog was digging through the snow with sharp movements, snoring loudly. The fox turned around and looked at the windows of a nearby house, at its timbered front through the white mist. The tip of her fake nose was shining under the lamp's light.
И не только ей.
I went red again, like a boiled crayfish this time. Is she talking about herself or someone else? I hoped the semi-dark would be able to hide my embarrassment from the girl. I cleared my throat before
А
asking.
кому еще я нравлюсь?
I waited, counting my heartbeat. The fox didn't reply. Her sly stare was scanning the frosty patterns of someone's window. She was reading them like a glass book. I wonder what she can see in those winter paintings. The stray stopped rummaging through the snow. It ran to me, holding the object in her paws. A mitten. Could it be the one I found in the forest? What is it doing here? When I looked closer, I realized it was just my mitten. Maybe Mom stuffed it in there when I was asleep? A certain missing boy immediately came to mind.
Эй, ты знаешь что-нибудь про Вову?
I imagined the scene, silhouettes dancing in the clearing. The dance on the night when Vova had disappeared. A boy who, when found, can provide a big reward and maybe save my family. I remembered my birthday, when our parents promised to take me and Olia to Disneyland in Paris. But instead of a long-anticipated gift, they gave me a simple brick game console. Visibly embarrassed. I was crying my eyes out back then, demanding to take me to the promised amusement park. That was the first time when Mom and Dad had a big fight. My greediness shattered their relationship. If only I could fix everything. Gather everyone I love and take them to
В
Disneyland.
ночь, когда пропал Вова, я, кажется, видел, как кто-то похожий на тебя плясал под моим окном.
It couldn't be true, but I felt like her mask became even more sly. The fox was sniffing me
А
out.
что, ты тогда испугался? За себя или кого-то еще?
Olia. As soon as I thought about my sister, my chest tightened and a cold sweat streamed down my spine.
Ну так слушай меня внимательно, мальчик по имени Антон. Это большой и страшный лес.
The fox girl stepped forward menacingly.
И я не единственный его обитатель. Другие звери уже знают о тебе. Берегись нас. Этой ночью мы опять придем.
I shouldn't have talked to this evil in child form, I thought,
Пока
panicking.
ты со своей семьей будешь спать, подкрадемся близко-близко. Макарену! Чё?
Dance the Macarena. Okay.
Эй, Макарена!
Oh, jeez.
У тебя прямо челюсть отвисла, Антоша! Видел он меня ночью у своего окна, ага, как же! А ты случаем не местный дурачок, нет? Меня не отпускают гулять так поздно. Здесь, знаешь ли, дети пропадают.
I touched the plastic frame of my glasses, puzzled by her silly joke. She got me scared to death.
Ой, да не тереби ты окуляры свои! Я раньше тоже близорукой была. Лучше послушай меня. Может быть, ума наберешься. Лисичку как обычно называют? Плутовка?
My words seemed to hurt her.
Ох ты ж! Да как ты меня? Ой, прости.
Her laughter was akin to the jingle of a pair of silver
Да
bells.
шучу я! Конечно, плутовкой. Если ты ловкий и смелый, не боишься с плутовкой водиться, я, так и быть, помогу разыскать этого Вову. Ты же неспроста его ищешь, да?
I shrugged in reply. Her insight was alarming.
Знаю, почему дети повадились соваться в наш лес. Порой там можно найти много всякого интересного. Я вот однажды нашла целый сугроб конфет и купалась в нем. Да так, что челюсть слиплась.
A pile of candy? I couldn't deduce whether she believed in what she was saying from the tone of her voice. I showed her another smile, a fake one this time.
Посмотрите-ка, какой недоверчивый. Ну-ну, а что ты на это скажешь?
She held out her hand in a furry mitten. There was an assortment of sweets in her palm. In the city I used to live, sweets like these were sold at markets or in kiosks. I saw my favorite bubble gum in a vivid wrapper among the tasty treasure. A familiar name was on it, Turbo. A triangular fox face poked her nose toward me.
Угощайся. У меня их полные карманы.
Don't take candy from strangers.
Нет, спасибо,
I didn't want to offend the first person I made contact with in this new place, but I also didn't want to take gum off the hands of some weird girl. What if she found it in a snow pile? Or what if it's prake candy, the kind that blows up in your face when you
У меня
unwrap
на
it?
сладкое аллергия.
Что?
She sounded
Ты
puzzled.
чего? Живешь в мире таблеток и микстур?
Ну, в целом, да.
The fox whistled. Her palm was empty now. It floated in the air, catching snowflakes now that the candy had suddenly
И
disappeared.
Новый год у вас правда раз в 12 месяцев? Есть эти...
She clicked her fingers, trying to remember something.
понедельники?
Ага.
I smiled.
О, как все запущено. Вам бы, юноша, кило шоколада съесть против скуки и уныния.
Who are you? I refrained from asking that question. She wouldn't answer anyway, or she'll just lie. I really wanted to see what's behind her mask. I was becoming more and more sure that underneath it was just a simple girl.
Может, Вова тоже нашел сугроб сладостей и теперь кувыркается в нем? Слушай, вдруг он решил остаться в лесу? Тогда, наверное, ему очень холодно в одной варежке.
The wind caught her words like a smoke from a fire and carried them deep into the darkness, into the creepy thicket. The trees behind me creaked with their bony branches.
Или с ним что-то случилось в пути. Что-то страшное.
The forest reacted to her words, became alive. It sniffed me out, perking up its ears just like a curious beast. The fox girl pierced me with her eyes again.
Дикие звери?
Это, по-твоему, страшно?
Ну, не знаю.
Не знает. Уж не с двоечником ли я подружилась?
I don't like being called a dunce, yet being friends with her sounded
Я
nice.
хорошист.
Бел да пушист. Пойдешь со мной, хорошист Антон? Найдем твоего Вову и сам его спросишь, что он нашел в этой пуще. Ведь пока мы вместе, никто тебя в лесу не тронет. Вот увидишь.
Worms of worry writhed in my belly. Better run, whispered my
Я тебе
mind.
не верю.
Ты думаешь, я врунья? Да и пожалуйста, мне никогда никто не верит.
The girl sounded hurt, although I didn't know if she was genuine about it. She turned around as if she had immediately lost interest in me. I remember my dad's favorite saying, "Where are your manners, son?" Indeed, this fox was kind to
Не
me.
обижайся, пожалуйста. Лисы бывают и добрыми. Ну, как в сказках. Мне бы только понять, что ты за лиса.
The girl giggled, hiding the nose of her mask in her hands.
Тогда пойдем со мной в лес, и ты все обо мне узнаешь. Но не сейчас, а когда рассветет. А то тебя, бедного, всего аж потряхивает. Того и гляди, кондрашка хватит. Айда, провожу тебя до школы.
After hearing this, the dog barked in agreement and stopped messing with the mitten. I leaned in, trying to grab the piece of handwear that almost ran away from
Ну,
me.
если тебе по пути,
We went toward the school and the lost dawn. Here and there the lights came on with the windows of houses as we passed. in the windows of houses as we passed, as if their inhabitants were sending us warning signs. Silhouettes lurked behind curtains. Dogs let out occasional barks. Spirals of gray smoke rose from chimneys. TVs bustled and dishes clanged in their kitchen. Whew. Oh boy. We watched the village slowly rise from its slumber, while carefully treading the snowy wheel trails. Oh boy. I walked in the left one and she took the right one. The dog was following right behind us. I expected the fox to bring up something weird again, but she stayed silent all the way to school, as if playing with me some game she was privy to. She would giggle from time to time when the dog sneezed from the snowflakes that fell on its nose. I was the first to break the
Так как тебя
silence.
зовут?
Ну, конечно. Имена, имена, имена. Людям непременно надо вешать ярлыки на все подряд. Ну и как бы ты назвал такую лису, как я?
Даже не знаю. Но я читал про лису по имени Алиса.
А что? Я не против. Пусть будет Алиса.
I couldn't understand if she was joking or not. I turned around as if looking for an answer from the dog, from the dark sky devoid of dawn. My silent questions were left unanswered. The school's outline was already in our sight, a giant brick box stuck in the endless night. Lights in its windows don't bode well for me. The warden trees were guarding the schoolyard. Screams, childish laughter, and someone whistling tore up the silence. I went here with my mom when we just moved in, and the place looked cozy at the time. Empty corridors that smelled of polished, puffy snow outside. The second time I came alone to get the books and just kept on imagining my peers rolling down the railings, grade schoolers running to the library, and teachers marching down the corridors with the air of self-importance around them. High schoolers were smoking at the entrance, in track pants and wool caps perched on their foreheads. Their appearance destroyed the last hopes for a cozy school. Their stingy eyes and teeth yellow from nicotine, their smirks, all of it had the same gloomy effect on the cloudy winter morning. Absorbed by my thoughts, I completely forgot about my
После
companion.
уроков жду тебя на заднем дворе, возле повешенного.
Возле кого?
She just ignored my
Не
question.
опаздывай.
I hesitated. Blowing hot and cold again, my mom always said when I would have trouble choosing between two options. Thinking about mom helped me reply.
Я после школы сразу домой.
Эх, Антоша, Антоша, это я тебя так просто отпустила. Другие же незаметно подкрадутся со своими улыбочками и вцепятся. Клещами не оторвешь. Попомни мои слова.
The fox opened her mouth with a wide yawn. What kind of trick is
Antona!
this? Someone running in the distance called out my name. I instinctively turned around. A huge snowball whizzed past my shoulder and hit the dog. It whimpered and ran toward the spring. The darkness devoured it. The fox girl was also nowhere to be seen. She dissolved into frosty air. Or was she hiding in my shadow? After taking a deep breath, I went toward the school, toward the cutlets of dough, toward the light raining down onto the snow. Well, I think I'm gonna... Well, unless something happens here. Okay, I'm gonna call it quits for right now. I'm gonna save. There we go. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this section. I think it's starting to get good. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen with the fox. Because if we're given the option, I'm definitely gonna follow her into the forest. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be ready for the next one. Hey.